What's on the agenda for today? Where are we growing?
Oh, where are we growing? We're growing in conflict. That's the fun topic, right? So,
Healthy versus unhealthy, baby.
there we go. So here's the issue and the problem that we face as parents. So let's talk about that first. So when you are on the phone with your loved one and you have typically a routine, probably, of how that conversation usually goes, you could probably anticipate it. You could probably write a script for it. You know how it's going to begin and how it's going to end, and many times it doesn't end positively. So let's see if we can build some framework around that might be helpful. And we're just going to keep it real simple, so this will be kind of more of an introduction to it than get really in depth. So let's break it down into three things. We're going to break it down into creating safety as number one, and that's got to be the foundation of the conversation. Creating safety, creating structure, and then coming to resolution. So in many of our conversations, resolution is not even on the table because it just kind of ends up in real negative emotions. So let's back up to how we start, and that would be safety. Really super important. Safety, emotional safety, verbal safety, creating a climate of safety. So how do we do that? There are a couple ways we can do that. First of all, we have to come up with a set of rules of engagement. We have to agree on that. We have to, at the very beginning of the conversation, we have to establish some boundaries and some limits and some guidelines. So what would be appropriate ones? So first of all, safety in my mind is you can't have a conversation without a foundation of respect. So respect means I respect your value and I respect and preserve your dignity. That goes both ways. Once that element is removed, conversation is over, we're done for the time being. How do we do that? So a couple things here. Let me just kind of go over a couple of issues here. So we're going to come up with some guidelines. So I'll read them off to you, and you think of what typically does not happen in your conversations. So first one would be to speak in a quiet voice. We don't want to come out and initiate it in a hard start. We want a soft start. When your conversation starts with a hard start, guns and knives come up, defenses come up, walls come up, and then we don't go anywhere. Number two, don't interrupt. So imagine that you have a pen in your hand, audibly over the phone, psychically over the phone, and whoever holds the pen holds the floor. So this is my time to hold the pen, and I don't want to be interrupted until I finish my thought, and then I'm going to hand you the pen. Now you finish your thought. That way we don't have the talking over. Number three is don't attack. All kinds of ways of attacking, and usually starts out with the word you. You did this, you did that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Those are ways of verbally attacking. We don't want to do that. We also don't want to use any abusive language. If your loved one starts out with a conversation using abusive language, using names, calling names, curse words, anything that will diminish your ability to have your dignity preserved in the conversation stops. Excuse me, we're not going to talk that way today. We're not going to do that. Use I, not you statements. So this is how I experience the situation. This is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm hearing you say. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm feeling. It's all based on I. Why is that important? Because once I go to the you, again, defenses come up. We don't want that. Don't bring up the past. We don't want to go in, this is not the time for history. We want to find out what is the issue at hand. We don't want to dig up, don't you remember when you did this and this? Because once that happens, now you're detoured, you're on a rabbit trail, and you won't get down to the last part, which is resolution. Do not blame. Blame is a big one. And don't threaten the relationship. Well, that's it. Never going to talk to you again. Or you're now disowned. We're not going to do that. We don't do that. Because the whole reason why you're talking to begin with is you have a relationship. You want that relationship to continue. And then don't criticize. Don't pick at. Try to get to the heart of the issue. Try to get to the heart of the person. And criticizing is just a way of picking holes at that, and it's actually setting up a barrier to vulnerability, which is what we don't want. So that's number one.
Yeah, and why is safety so important?
So safety is what allows vulnerability. So if it is a safe environment, then I'm really going to get down to the issue, because this is what I found. The issue is never the issue. It's never the issue. So it could be, Dad, how come you're not sending me a pack of cigarettes? You told me you would. Is that the issue? Or maybe I don't feel like you've kept your promises to me in the past. Where's the real hurt? Where's the real issue? And go for that. So without the safety, you won't get there. You won't get to the real connection place. Because when you think about it, your resolution is really the depth of your connection. So if you can get to the real connection, then the resolution is easy. So safety is what provides that.
Yeah, and I've noticed too, when a person feels safe, they tend to check their weapons at the door, if you will, and then we can have a processing discussion of trying to explore of what the real issue is and what each other's needs are from this whole observation standpoint, so then we can make the request and meet those needs.
That's correct. So you can tell when the environment is not safe. And how is that? When you ask the question and the reply is, fine. How are you doing? Fine. How was your week? Fine. So there's no vulnerability. We don't go any deeper because it's not safe for me to go deeper. That will be your very first clue. There's not enough safety here. So is that person really being heard? Are they really feeling understood, as opposed to just, hey, take care of this issue?
When we come from judgment, that's the quickest and surefire way to remove safety from the conversation.
Absolutely.
Is judgment. And then the other thing that popped in my mind as you were speaking was good old Stephen Covey. Listen with the intent to understand.
Right. That's very true. That's very true. Stephen Covey had a lot of good stuff on that. So focus and safety not on the person, in terms of you just have a problem and I just need to fix your problem. Yeah, we need to get down to the hurt. And so that's kind of the other part of the safety part is listening for the hurt, listening for the feelings. Well, how are you really feeling about that? What's really going on with you? How are you really feeling? Get down to that level of vulnerability in your conversations. The second part is structure. So we've got the ground rules, we've got the rules of engagement. Now we need the structure. So the structure, we need to recognize a couple things. We can actually do a timeout if you need to. So if the rules of engagement are not happening and dignity is not being preserved, now it's time for a timeout. Now, a timeout is not I'm done or a click and you hang up and it's over. A timeout is, you know what, we probably need to spend about maybe, I don't know, you choose a time, 20 minutes, a half an hour, maybe an hour off of this conversation. And when you feel that you're ready to come to the table and have an adult conversation, we'll bring this back up again, but let's give it an hour. And then in that hour, you call back or have them call back. And then you try it again. What we don't want is, again, to come against the safety and do an emotional cutoff. Emotional cutoff is a hang up, emotional, now you can say at the beginning, by the way, if it gets abusive and there's name calling and blatant disrespect, that will happen. You will have a disconnect on the phone, but they've been warned in advance. But then you also leave the door open for them to come back in a certain amount of time and actually say, wait a minute, okay, let's do this again. I'm sorry. Let's have a different kind of conversation. Which, by the way, means that the parent on your end can't do this stuff either, right? It's not just your loved one, but you're setting the tone for the conversation at the beginning.
Yeah, and it's interesting because for some reason, most people don't like structure. It's kind of like, I don't want the structure. However, it's structure that sets us up to win. Imagine playing a game with no rules. One of the things that pops in my mind is way back in the day, playing football, when you got the referee, there's fewer or less injuries actually, because there's actually structure of the way it's done. You know how to win, you know the rules of engagement.
Right.
One time the ref didn't show up, so we thought, we'll just have one of our buddies call it. There were more injuries that game. There was absolutely no structure. There was chaos, and this is what happens when we don't have structure going into it, or both sides know the rules of engagement, what the rules are, what's out of bounds, what's in play. And so, even though for some reason deep down we say we are at the tip, we say we don't want it, deep down we crave structure.
Right. Absolutely. I think we do really well with structure. Mm-hmm. We don't do well without structure. So let's go a little bit deeper into the structure. So part of the structure would be each person has to share their position. You have to give time for them to share where they're really at, and then you share where you're really at. And then let's take it a step farther. What is your side of the street in this issue? What part of this issue actually is your responsibility? What part have you contributed to? What part can you own? And so we don't want to be all of, well, this is all your deal, your problem, you need to fix this. No. Let's back up. So what part do you own on this? So what we really want to do in structure is you're trying to develop character. You want to get to the character points of honesty, character points of responsibility. That's part of our conversation. That's part of the value of us having a conversation together and as responsible as a parent, is you want to encourage that with your loved one and develop that with them so that your conversations are much more transparent. Because now you've got more of the element of honesty, and the other person not saying, look, why can't you send me $500? Well, so $500? So does that mean that you're misspending the other money that you have for food? How is your responsibility showing or not showing in this situation? So that's part of the structure point.
Yeah, owning it is key, even if it's on a percentage wise. If my part's 1% and you're 99, if I come in owning the 1%, kind of goes back to safety of, okay, it's just not an attack fest. This person actually does see their part. Now I've learned not to say I only have 1% here, but by saying, hey, here's some areas that owning it is so difficult, but is so pivotal in that conversation.
Right. So structure is, and that goes along with the whole question of whose problem really is this? Is this my problem or is this your problem? Who's really owning the problem? And instead of blaming the problem on you or you blaming the problem on me, and it really has nothing, you're just trying to hook me, right? Instead of owning your particular issue. So that's really important. So that's basic boundaries. And then third part is resolution. A lot of our conversations don't get to that. Resolution does not necessarily mean we agree. We may not agree, and it's going to be resolved by, I think you need to take care of this issue on your own. That may be the resolution. You don't have to be the savior. You do not have to be the rescuer. You do not have to be the enabler. As a matter of fact, the more that we as parents are enablers and take responsibility from them, and then we take the responsibility, we have just put them way far back in their development and their growth, their personal growth.
Yeah, that's huge. And a lot of the times, the conversation that we help kind of structure and lead is, if I've been enabling, is to actually start, and this has worked really well for me, is, you know what, I'm noticing my part in this. I've actually been either condoning this behavior, or I've been accepting of it by not saying anything. And I truly apologize. I can see I've actually added to this because I didn't know what to do. And as I'm getting more help, now there's some clarity of what we can do to help each other. And then we can actually start setting those boundaries of what we're doing our work on in order to help support them. But it's kind of a nice way to have a conflict and have a discussion of something that is really deep and serious by actually owning my part instead of saying you're messing up and going, oh, I've contributed to this. Here's what I'm seeing, and I want you to know I apologize, and I'm stopping this behavior today because I really want to get resolve on this. That conversation a lot of the times is the most difficult to have, and once we do, we've seen that change the entire dialogue and relationship.
I'm sure that's great. That's great. So what could possibly go wrong with this? What could possibly go wrong with this plan? Well, here's one. So let me just kind of throw out a trap. So a resolution trap or a non-resolution trap. Resolution does not mean that you give whatever is requested. But the problem is that if you are coming from a position of guilt, then you have now crossed over very easily to become the enabler. So how does that work? Well, my daughter, her dad took off when she was born. So I've got to make it right for her. I've got to make sure that she's happy. I've got to make sure that he is not going to feel that pain. And so I've just jumped in to become their higher power instead of becoming a parent. And so my resolution is now not based on what is most loving. My resolution is based on resolving my guilt. So think about that. How much of your resolving or giving is based on what is most loving for that person, or what is based on you feeling better, based on what has happened in the past and what you are now trying to take on to prevent that person from feeling consequences or the effects of life. Because even if there is a loss, we need to learn how to deal with loss. You may have made a mistake as a parent. The other parent may have made a mistake. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. It is now time to resolve in terms of what is most loving, which is being able to accept the loss, and maybe that person needs some support in the loss. They need to go through the grieving process, and that's okay. But to try to keep them from feeling their feelings is not resolution. So that's a trap, and that can be overcome by you taking care of your business.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Another thing that pops in my mind too is how to tactfully say no, because a lot of the times when we set a boundary, I have yet to receive oh wow, thank you for allowing this to be my issue and not bailing me out. Usually it's the exact opposite. And some framework that really helps that, from what I've learned, is by asking a person, I call it external processing, but asking them, what is a way that I'm able to say no, and you're able to respect that as an answer.
That's really good.
A lot of the times we feel I have to have them accept me. Or another one is gosh, this just happened the other day. I'm trying to remember the framework of it, but basically it was they were feeling really disrespected. And so I asked kind of a similar question. I said, well, what is a way that I'm able to have my answer and you not feel disrespected? And just by asking that, the person went, oh, you know what? I actually do feel respected. What I'm seeing it is I just don't like the answer. And I went, wow, that, and then right away I was able to go to a positive affirmation of saying, what a huge realization. So sometimes just by asking that question of what is a way that I can answer this way, and either it be okay or you not feel attacked, or addressing those emotions, and not always, but sometimes you can see the hamster on the wheel, I call it, and they go, oh, I never thought of it that way. So it's some additional kind of rules of engagement, if you will.
That's really good. So let's do one final trap.
Okay.
Resolution trap, and that is when. Now this is going to be a little difficult for some parents out there, because some parents, are single parents. So when I step out of the role of being parent, and I step into the role of being friend, I've lost my authority, and I've lost my ability to truly give what is really needed in the situation. So, excuse me, that's the issue we need to do. So as a single parent, what happens is the mate's gone, I'm working so hard, so many hours, I don't have any more friends on the outside. My child becomes my friend, and now I need to keep them happy, to keep feeling accepted, and that's a trap.